if you're in my Discord, or if you read Kotaku, or if you are on certain parts of the internet over the weekend, you might have heard that there's an interesting thing happening. Let me hold on. I will share it. Give me 1 second because it takes me a minute to do such things. I want this one. And I'm sure you can hear the children. I want that one. I want this one. Okay, cool. And I don't want the ad. Okay, there we go. Woo. Okay, so you may have seen this. A group of Hades fans are staging the entire Iliad on Twitch. Now, when I first saw this, my initial thoughts were cool and, oh man, I wish I could be a part of this. You know, as you do. I've been doing my Mythology Monday stream now for over a year, doing this kind of thing. But the point is that there are a bunch of people who are still playing Hades on Twitch and other places, and it's a lot of like these speed running people, which is cool. But yeah, so this one guy, I'm not sure how to pronounce his online name, WRISTE13, but this fellow he's a Hades speedrunner. Apparently, like, he's got records. He teaches people how to speedrun the game, all sorts of cool stuff. And he started to talk to friends that he's made in the community and other people about reading the Iliad. And in general, this is super awesome. This is like the best possible outcome from there being a video game out there about classical mythology. I haven't had a chance to talk to Pete, but yeah, he might. I don't know if he's part of this at all. So they got to get. Oh Jesus, these ads are. I don't typically use Chrome very much, but I just use it for stream stuff. It's easier. So anyway, they got together with a bunch of people, and they're going to be reading the Iliad, or I think they already have, and then he's just going to be showing it as videos. Super cool. And yeah, so I saw this and I was like, oh, that'd be cool if I could get in on this, but I'm sure it's already booked up, and like I said, I think they've already probably done it all, and they're just going to be showing it as videos on the stream. Who knows? Whatever. So I emailed the guy, and I said, this looks really cool. I'm all about this. If you have any, cancellations or you need a replacement, let me know. Also, if you need somebody to do any reading in the ancient Greek, I can do that, or to sing the opening lines of the Iliad in ancient Greek, I can do that. And I was surprised, but this guy wrote back to me like an hour later. It wrote me a really nice, substantial email about thanking me for my interest, saying that while there were some late issues with some people, that they did find replacements, so they are all fully booked. Also thanking me for the idea of doing some stuff in ancient Greek, and saying that he had thought about whether or not to include some Greek stuff, or people who are bilingual doing things in different languages, but couldn't really figure out a way to incorporate that, and then just deciding on keeping it just the standard. Just, we're going to read the Iliad from top to bottom. But yeah, so anyway, wrote me a really nice email. Has definitely found, he and other people in the community have found a broader interest in Greek mythology after playing Hades, which again, super cool. So they may be doing other stuff, and I may get, who knows if I get involved in any of that. But also, really wanted to express to me specifically that that this project is really all about the Hades community. Like they didn't go outside and get in touch with classicists or professors or anybody else. That they were primarily and focused on just talking to people who play Hades, and that's who they want to go and do the reading, which makes total sense, and I appreciate that. And I am not part of that community, so I mean, yes, I did. We did do streams about Hades when we did it on Myths and Video Games with Pete, but it was Pete playing the game, and I'm just watching it and talking about it. I would not consider myself part of the Hades gaming community, and that's fine. So yeah, but I'm like I said, I totally support this. It's really cool. I I love it when people get into mythology from other sources, and yeah, so they've got 27 people reading. Yeah, they're not doing characters. That would just be ridiculous. And again, there's not that much. Yeah, it would be weird to try to read characters. So yeah. When is it starting? Okay, June 20th is the start. On I wish I knew how to pronounce his online name. Risti, I'm gonna guess. But 6 p.m. Pacific on June 20th, and then they'll have it on Spotify and YouTube afterward. And I definitely plan on tuning in, at least when I can, because it sounds super cool. So there. So I wanted to share that, and who knows? Like I said, maybe this will turn into other things and other projects. And the guy seems like a genuinely nice guy. From my small interaction with him, I don't know. I didn't go and super research. Yeah, Erdensk, as far as playing the game, it didn't look like a game that I'd want to play, but I certainly had a lot of fun watching it. That game is insanely packed with just absolutely beautiful artwork, tons and tons of references to the mythology, really fun and interesting characterizations. So I do highly recommend Hades from those points of view. As far as actually playing the game, that's you're gonna have to make your own decisions for that. Okay, Zardoz tagged me in a tweet this morning. There's a Twitter account called, I always forget the full name, Classical Studies Memes for Hellenistic Teens, I think it is, and it's basically a Twitter account devoted to me. It's all just memes and jokes that I get every single thing they post, and most people probably don't, but there's some really funny things they do there. In fact, there was one yesterday. I was already following that account, but they posted one yesterday. They retweeted somebody who captured, there was a soda bottle, and there were two bees that went onto the top of the soda bottle, and they were working together to get the top off. It's amazing video. And somebody had just tweeted that, but then the Classical Studies Memes account retweeted that and said, basically, this is the future that Virgil wanted. And if you've been paying attention, you remember me probably talking about the when Virgil goes on and on in this book about bees and ants being super productive and working together, and again, core good old Roman values. So I got a good laugh about that. Ooh, Hudsonizer. How well did that go over? I mean, look, nowadays, again, as I've talked about with Pete on our Myths and Video Game show, there's a lot of, in some games, there's a lot of really good, accurate mythological and historical content in video games. Not every game, and of course they're going to play with it a little bit. And yeah, the Assassin's Creed stuff, there's a lot of great stuff in there, and then they have aliens and not time travel, but looking through time at different, and then it gets a little silly, but there's a lot of good stuff in there too. Okay. So, we are still reading Virgil's Aeneid. We're more than halfway through, which is good. We've been doing a little bit more skipping around, which is fine. We don't need to read every word, especially when we're getting lists and lists of soldiers and leaders coming to the fight. But essentially now we have the final conflict has begun. Aeneas is in Italy. He has already made plans to marry the daughter of Latinus, the king of the Latins tribe, and the daughter who was previously already promised to Turnus of the Rutolians, another local tribe. So now each side is gathering allies for this fight, and it's going to be a big battle. Essentially how the rest of this is going to go. Okay. I don't know what's happening over there. And thanks everybody for tuning in. I know there are other people streaming this morning. You have lots of choices when it comes to your Monday morning entertainment. And I love lurking is, of course, fully welcomed for those of you who are hanging out. Okay, so we are in Book VIII, which is called Arcadian Allies. Because again, they're running around trying to grab up, hey, will you come and help us? We are linked from some ancient shared lineage, or we fought in battles before, or we've had bonds of guest friendship before. So there are all these reasons why you would go and try to recruit people to your cause. So, but it's not just humans, right? It's also the gods. Now Venus, as a mother sorely frightened, and with good reason, moved by the menaces of the Laurentines and their hostile rising, turned to Vulcan. So, if you remember from our Greek readings, the god Hephaestus in Roman is Vulcan. In her bridal chamber, all in gold, putting divine desire in every word, she said, so she's doing a little seducing, while Argive kings lay their due victim, Pergama, waste, so when they laid waste to Troy, her towers doomed to fall in fires her enemy set, never did I demand for the desperate any relief at all, no weapons forged by your skill in your metal. Most dear husband, I never wished to tax you, make you toil in a lost cause, however much I owed to Priam's sons, however long I wept over Aeneas's ordeals. Now, going back to the Iliad, right, remember Achilles says he's not going to fight anymore. Patroclus really, really wants to fight, takes Achilles' armor, goes into battle. Hector kills him. Now Hector has Achilles' armor. And then Achilles' mom goes to the gods and says, I need new armor and weapons for Achilles. And Hephaestus makes them. But as Venus is saying here, I never asked you for anything back at Troy. I didn't ask you for armor for Hector or for Aeneas or anybody else. But now I'm going to ask you. Now, however, by the command of Jove, he has made good his landing on the Rutolian shore, and so I do come now, begging your sacred power for arms, a mother begging for her son. The daughter of Nereus moved you, that was Thetis, Achilles' mom, and Tithonus' consort moved you by her tears to this. Look now, and see what masses throng together. See what cities lock their gates and whet the sword against me, to cut down my own. The goddess spoke, and wrapped her snowy arms this way and that about him as he lingered, cherishing him in her swan's down embrace. And instantly he felt the flame of love invading him as ever. Into his marrow ran the fire he knew, and through his bones, as when sometimes, ripped by a thunder peal, a fiery flash goes jagged through the clouds. His wife, contented with her blandishment, sure of her loveliness, perceived it all. Lord Vulcan, captive to immortal passion, answered her. Why do you go so far afield for reasons? Has your trust in me gone elsewhere, goddess? If concern like this had moved you in the old days, even then I might have armed the Trojans lawfully. For neither Jove Almighty nor the Fates forbade Troy to endure, Priam to live 10 further years. If you are ready now to arm for war and have a mind to wage it, all the devoted craft that I can promise, all that is forgeable in steel and molten alloy by the strength of a blast fire, you need not beg me for these gifts. Have done with doubting your own powers. He says, all you gotta do is ask, and I'm gonna do it for you. I'm gonna get the forge going, get the steel, the alloys, the blast fire of the furnace. He said no more, but took her in his arms as she desired, and gave himself, infused in her embrace, to peace and slumber. When his first repose came to an end in the mid-course of night, now on the wane, and waked him, at that hour when a poor woman whose hard lot it is to make a living by her loom and spindle, pokes up the embers, wakes the sleeping fire, adding some night time to her morning's work, and by the firelight keeps her house, blah, 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 blah. Just a long... Okay. The Lord of Fire rose from his soft bed to labor at the smithy. Near the coast of Sicily and Aeolian Lipari, a steep island rises, all of rock and smoking, a volcano. Underneath a mammoth cave and vaulted galleries of Etna, burned away by blast fire from the Cyclops' forge, rumble in thunder. Mighty blows are heard re-echoing and booming from the anvils. Calibian bars of iron hiss in the caverns. Vulcan's workshop, named for him Vulcania. To this the Lord of Fire came down from heaven. Working with iron in the enormous cave were Cyclops' thunderclap and anvil fire and flash, stripped to the waist. And I remember going way, 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 way back to the beginning when we first started talking about Greek mythology and the Theogony by Hesiod. There are different brands of Cyclops in Greek mythology and in Roman mythology. Most famous is probably Polyphemus and the Cyclops who encounters Odysseus in the Odyssey. Those, and there were other ones that were living around him. Those are sort of like minor Cyclopes, plural of Cyclops. Polyphemus was a son of Poseidon. We don't know specifically if the other Cyclopes are children of Poseidon or not. It's not 100% clear. But way, way back in the sort of creation of the world, there are the primordial Cyclopes. And these were creations of the earth, locked away, used by Zeus, all this other stuff. So those are the ones we're hearing about here. And they sort of translate their names into, well, here into English, but they have their colloquial names: Thunderclap, Anvil Fire, and Flash. They had a bolt in hand, such as from open sky the Father often hurls to earth, this one part done, parts still unfinished. First, the smiths had added twisted hail, 3 rays of rain cloud, 3 of red fire, and the flying south wind. Now they were mixing in terrifying lightning, fracas, and fear, and anger in pursuit with flares. Elsewhere they strove to finish a chariot of Mars, and flying wheels on which he might stir fighting men and cities. Then to an Aegis, cuirass bringing dread of Pallas when aroused, they gave a polish, vying to shine the golden serpent scales, the knot of vipers, and the Gorgon's head, for the goddess's very breast, which with severed neck and rolling eyes. So essentially, these Cyclopes are working in this massive forge that's owned by Vulcan, and they're working on all of the various equipment and armor and weapons of the gods. Patty, good morning, or good day, good Monday to you. I'm doing all right. I hope you're doing well. So these master smiths are working together with, they're turning like hail and rain and lightning into materials. They're buffing up Mars's chariot and the shield that Minerva, Athena, uses. But then, put all these things away, commanded Vulcan. Cyclops under Etna, drop the work begun. Here is our task. Armor is to be forged for a brave soldier. Now we can use your brawn and your deft hands, your craft, your mastery. Shake off all reluctance. Vulcan said no more, but they, for their part, buckled down as one, allotting equal tasks to each. In streams the molten brass and gold flowed. Iron that kills turned liquid in the enormous furnace heat. They shaped a vast shield, one that might alone be proof against all missiles of the Latins. Fastened it layer on layer, sevenfold. Some smiths drew pulsing in and blasted out the air with bellows. Others plunged the metal screeching in fresh water. And the cavern groaned under the anvils they set down. Now this, now that one, for a mighty stroke, brought up his arms in rhythm as they hammered, shifting the metal mass with gripping tongs. So they got to work. Get to work. Get to work, you Cyclopes. And yes, Vulcan and Venus are married. And this is the super odd couple amongst the gods. And again, this was true for Hephaestus and Aphrodite for the Greeks. You have the most beautiful of all goddesses, in fact, the goddess of beauty, married to the hideous, misshapen, ugly god of the forge and the smiths. Why? Why is that pairing? Why did that pairing happen? There are various reasons, various thoughts behind it. Partly, some of it comes back to Zeus. Zeus wants to get with, well, again, using Greek terms, Zeus wants to get with Aphrodite sometimes, so marry her off to an ugly dude, and yeah, it's a whole thing. They do have, the children are complicated, and Aphrodite does cheat on Hephaestus, notably with Ares. Also, we have this, again, the most famous story that comes out of all of this is Hephaestus sort of, he knows that they're cheating on him, and he's mad about it, but he's not sure what he can really do, because, gods and goddesses are going to do whatever they want. But he rigs up this ingenious trap in their bed. So while Ares and Aphrodite are in bed together, this trap springs, and it's like this. First of all, the trap was invisible, but then it has all these wires and snares, and it essentially pins them down in bed while they're having sex, and then Hephaestus brings in all of the other gods and goddesses to come and look at them, which is an interesting way to go about confronting infidelity, and it embarrasses them, but at the same time it's like, I mean, yeah, we're just banging, and Ares is like, yeah, I'm having sex with the most beautiful goddess there is. Like, am I supposed to be embarrassed by this? So they were getting to work. And then we go back to Aeolia. Or no, well, in Aeolia, that was... Okay, so Birdsong awakened Evander. So we go back to, and again, Aeneas visiting his new allies, led by Evander. and he goes to talk to Aeneas. The king began saying, "Greatest of Trojan greatest of Trojan captains, never while you live shall I consider Troy to be conquered and her kingdoms gone. But, though our name is great, our power is slight to strengthen you in war." So we get a nice idea here that, similar to, I mean, you see this a lot in stories of kings who are, exiled from their homeland, or their homeland has been destroyed. We see this with Thor in the last couple of MCU movies. Your nation is not tied to geography; it's in the people. If the people survive and carry on, then so does your nation. So Troy is still alive, Aeneas, because you carry on its legacy and its name. And then he says, like, "We'll help you out, but we don't have a lot. We are confined on this side by the river, and on that the Rutulians bring pressure on our wall with noisy forays. No, I plan for you a league with a great host, an army rich in many kingdoms. Here, by unforeseen good fortune, your salvation now appears. Fate called for your coming. No long way from here, men live in the city of Agylla, built of ancient stone. The Lydians, renowned in war, in the old days settled there on the Etruscan ridges, and for years the city flourished, till an arrogant king, Mezentius, ruled it barbarously by force. How shall I tell of carnage beyond telling? Beastly crimes this tyrant carried out. Requite them, gods, on his own head, and so on his children. He would even couple carcasses with living bodies as a form of torture. Hand to hand and face to face, he made them suffer corruption, oozing gore and slime in that wretched embrace, and a slow death." All right, so this, we're getting introduced now to a lovely fellow named Mezentius. And Mezentius is, he is just a disgusting, horrible son of a bitch. Again, another local king. There are a million of them. Every 2 feet in ancient Italy was a different tribe led by a different king. This Mezentius was just brutal to all people, and he's so despicable, so vile, that for torture, he makes people lay down, a couple have sex with dead bodies. Freaking gross. He would couple carcasses with living bodies as a form of torture. And I'm going to read the details again. Hand to hand and face to face, he made them suffer corruption, oozing gore and slime in that wretched embrace, and a slow death. So he's gross. Super gross. But at long last the townsmen, sickening of his unholy ways, took arms and laid siege to the madman and his house. They killed his henchmen and threw fire on his roof, but in the midst of slaughter he escaped, took refuge in Rutulian territory, and got himself defended by the arms of Turnus, host and friend. On this account, Etruria's people have risen as one man in righteous anger, threatening war at once, demanding the king back for punishment. So we've got all these local kings. Mezentius is the goddamn worst. His own people rise up against him. They kill off his henchmen. He manages to escape, makes it to the Rutulians, and gets refuge there under Turnus. So we'll get various reasons why Turnus is the bad guy, and oftentimes they're kind of ambiguous. Again, as we've already seen, Turnus is a local king. By all accounts, he's not the worst guy around. He did essentially have a contract with Latinus to marry his daughter, so Turnus has a reason to be upset about Aeneas coming. And being betrothed to his former fiance. But one of the ways that we know Turnus is not necessarily the good guy is Turnus took in Mezentius, and Mezentius is a really despicable cretin of a person. So we definitely do not like Turnus for that reason. So Evander continues. Now I will make you leader of these thousands, Aeneas. For in fact, while ships of theirs are crowded on the shore and fret for action, calling for ensigns to go forward, still a soothsayer of great age holds them all back, forewarning them. Picked men of Maeonia, flower and heart of an old heroic race, though justly moved by your past suffering against your enemy, and though Mezentius fires you with rightful anger, no Italian may have command of this great people's cause. Choose leaders from abroad. Taking alarm at heaven's warning, the Etruscan ranks rest on their arms here in this plain, and Tarchon, another local hero, sends me envoys with his crown and scepter, badges of regal power. He asks that I go up to camp and take the Tyrian throne. But slow and cold old age, weakened by years, forbids command. An old man's vigor fails or falls behind in action. Again, he's so old. Old age, it's the worst. No, you are he whose age and foreign birth the fates approve, and whom the gods desire. Enter on your great duty now, great heart, commander of Trojans and Italians both. I shall, besides, commit to you my palace, all my comfort and my hope, to learn with you as master how to weather battle, Mars's dead serious work. May he become familiar with your actions, look to you as his exemplar from his early years. I'll add 200 horsemen, all Arcadians, picked for ruggedness. In his own name, Pallas will give 200 more. So, Evander eventually gets to the point. He's like, we've got all these guys, they're ready to fight, but there was this prophecy saying that they could not be commanded by an Italian. And hey, look, you're a foreigner. You can have them. And also, I'm going to give you a bunch of my own dudes, and they're going to help you out. In silence after this speech, Anchises' son, Aeneas, and faithful at his side, Achates, sat with downcast eyes. They would have pondered long and grimly on the many trials to come, had not the Cytheran queen from open heaven given a sign, one utterly unforeseen. So Aeneas hears this mostly good news. He's going to get some allies out of this deal. But still, hearing the overall plot and how the numbers are against them and everything else, he's quiet. His eyes are downcast. He's not super excited about this. It's like, well, shit, this is still not a good situation. So then Venus comes and sends a sign. A quivering flash out of the upper air, a thunder crack, and in that instant all the sky seemed fallen. As it seemed on high, a Tyrian trumpet gave a rumbling blast. They all looked up. Again and yet again, so that's 3 times, the first, and then again and yet again, tremendous crashes came. Between the clouds in sunlit air, they saw red glare of armor clashing, thundering at the shock. The others sat still, mystified, but Troy's great captain recognized the sound and knew the promise made by his goddess mother. Then he said, "My friend, you need not, truly need not ask what new events portend. I am the man whom heaven calls." That's a great line. "This sign my goddess mother prophesied she would send if war broke out, and said, too, she would bring out of the sky arms made by Vulcan to assist me. Aye! What carnage is at hand for poor Laurentines? What retribution you will make to me, Turnus. Many a shield, many a helm, and many brave men's bodies you'll take under, Father Tiber. Let them insist on war. Let them break treaties." Again, the treaty's business is a little complicated, but we'll allow it. After saying this, he rose from his high seat and first revived the fires for Hercules on slumbering altars, gladly revisiting as yesterday the guardian Lar and humble household gods. So remember the little framing situation for this story is that they visited in the midst of a festival for Hercules. So he's like, get that fire, blazing higher to honor Hercules. We're gonna keep this party going all night long. I know, Hudsonizer, it's good, right? Yeah, he's talking about the altars and the guardian Lar. So who is Lar? What is Lar? This goes back to the Romans and talked about. So Romans had gods and goddesses, like the official ones that everybody prayed to. The overall pantheon. Lar's the god of LARPing. Exactly. And then like specific cities, specific districts, specific families would be particularly devoted to a specific god for one reason or another. If you were a family that had a lot to do with seafaring, obviously you'd worship Neptune, maybe a little bit more than the other ones. But even down from that, every Roman family had what are called household gods. Yeah, exactly. Minor gods and goddesses. There were a million of them. But so even down to, like I said, household gods and goddesses. And these were like it's hard to explain exactly how these things work. But essentially they were almost more like spirits than gods, and that they would inhabit your home, and you would have little trinkets. Oh yeah, Percy Jackson. That makes sense. So they'd be like my toys. Like you'd have a shelf, and there'd be little figures, and they would represent just like the general spirits that would take care of your house and look out for you and your family. And you almost always hear these referred to in plural, and they are the Lares. So now an individual one would be Lar. But again, like they don't really have singular identities. It's more like you almost always hear of them as a group. Like they are the Lares. They're just part of what you do in your house to honor the gods and watch out for any evil eye that might be afflicting your home and your family. Also, anachronistic to say that these people had Lares, because that's a Roman thing that were later. Exactly. Poop Batman, he's down there. He's watching out for me. Look out, Poop Batman. Yeah, so they drum up all the stuff they were doing for Hercules in this event. They start to do more sacrifices, because again, endless sacrifices. They go to the ships. And of course, again, we've got gifts. They were supplied with horses. For Aeneas, they led a special mount, all blanketed with a lion's skin, gleaming with gilded claws. Then suddenly, a rumor flew about the little town that horsemen were departing quickly for the Etrurians' king's domain. Mothers in fright doubled their prayers. Fear brought danger nearer, and the specter of war grew larger in their eyes. But Lord Evander clung to the hand of his departing son and could not have enough of tears, he said. So Evander is going to send his son Pallas. Now, annoyingly, Pallas is a name that shows up a lot in ancient stuff. Pallas is another name for Athena / Minerva. And while the Greeks and the Romans had separate names for them, again, Athena and Minerva, Pallas is assigned to both. But Pallas here is also the son of Evander, who is an ally of Aeneas. A lot of Pallases. So old Evander is telling his son, "If only Jupiter would give me back the past years and the man I was, when I cut down the front rank by Praeneste wall, and won the fight, and burned the piles of shields. I had dispatched to hell with this right hand King Erulus, to whom Feronia, his mother, gave 3 lives at birth. A thing to chill the blood, 3 sets of arms to fight with, so that he had to be brought down 3 times. Yet this hand took his lives that day, took all, and each time took his arms. I should not now be torn from you and from your dear embrace, my son, and neither would Mezentius have shown contempt for me, his bordering power, putting so many cruelly to the sword, and widowing his town of citizens. But O high masters, and thou, Jupiter, supreme ruler of gods, pity, I beg, the Arcadian king, and hear a father's prayer. If by thy will my son survives, and fate spares him, and if I live to see him still, to meet him yet again, I pray for life. There is no trouble I cannot endure. But fortune, if you threaten some black day, now, let me break off my bitter life, while all's in doubt, while hope of what's to come remains uncertain, while I hold you here, dear boy, my late delight, my only one, and may no graver message ever come to wound my ears. These were the father's words, poured out in final parting. He collapsed completely, and the servants helped him in. He's so old, and he loves his son so much. He begs and beseeches the gods and all the powers, let him come back alive to me. Let me see him again. And I'll leave it to you to guess what happens. But no spoilers. And now, indeed, through the open gates, the horsemen left the town, Aeneas at their head, Achates at his right hand, then the others, Trojan officers, and Pallas himself, mid-column in short cloak with blazoned arms, a sight as brilliant as the morning star, whom Venus loves above all stellar fires. Blah, 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 blah. They're riding out. They cross the land. There's a grove. They go camping. They feed the horses. Okay. Venus, the gleaming goddess, bearing her gifts, came down amid high clouds, and far away still, in a vale apart, sighted her son beside the ice-cold stream. Then, making her appearance as she willed, she said to him, "Here are the gifts I promised, forged to perfection by my husband's craft, so that you need not hesitate to challenge arrogant Laurentines or savage Turnus, however soon in battle." As she spoke, Cytherea swept to her son's embrace and placed the shining arms before his eyes under an oak tree. Now the man, in joy at a goddess's gifts, at being so greatly honored, could not be satisfied, but scanned each piece in wonder, and turned over in his hands the helmet with its terrifying plumes and gushing flames, the sword blade edged with fate, the cuirass of hard bronze, blood red and huge, like a dark cloud burning with sunset light that sends a glow for miles, the polished greaves of gold and silver alloy, the great spear, and finally the fabric of the shield beyond description. Although we're going to get the description. And again, going all the way back to the Iliad in Homer, when Achilles gets the arms made for him by, same dude, by Hephaestus, we get this long depiction of what is actually on, what is sculpted on the shield. So now, we're going to hear what's on Aeneas' shield. And it's a lot. So, stick with me. This is going to wrap up the end of Book 8 here. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? All from here on in, this is all what's carved into the shield. So also, imagine how tiny these details must be. There, the Lord of Fire, knowing the prophets, knowing the age to come, had wrought the future story of Italy, the triumphs of the Romans. There one found the generations of Ascanius's heirs, the wars they fought, each one. So, again, and Virgil does this a lot, right? He's looking at. Hey, Tiny Chris. So, Virgil is looking back at his Roman history and putting that in Aeneas's story as future prophecy. Yeah, exactly. Carved with a toothpick. So here we're going to have the future of the Romans, which again for Virgil is history. Vulcan had made the mother wolf, lying in Mars's green grotto, made the twin boys at play about her teats, nursing the mother without fear, while she bent round her smooth neck, fondling them in turn, and shaped their bodies with her tongue. So that's obviously Romulus and Remus, the twins who are raised by the wolf. There's anytime you have stories or art or depictions of Romulus and Remus and the wolf, they always really emphasize the wolf's teats. It's a thing. And there's this ancient idea that when an animal, so ancient people would see animals give birth, and then they noted that whenever an animal would give birth, the mother would lick the new baby. Okay, well, science tells us that that's for a couple of different reasons, some grosser than others, but this is a thing that happens. Ancient people thought that newborn animals were only partly formed, and that the mother licking them was actually helping to shape and form them into the correct form. That's just what they thought. So here it's talking about how the wolf is doing that to Romulus and Remus. Partly. Okay, so that's the first tiny detail on the shield. Nearby, Rome had been added by the artisan, and Sabine women roughly carried off out of the audience at the circus games. Then suddenly a new war coming on to pit the sons of Romulus against old Tatius and his austere town of Cures. And I'll go back and talk about some of these things later, but just let's absorb all the details. Later the same kings, warfare laid aside, in arms before Jove's altar stood, and held libation dishes, as they made a pact with offering of swine. Not far from this, 2 4-horse war cars, whipped on back to back, had torn Metis apart. Still, man of Alba, you should have kept your word. Again, just endless references to other stories, historical people, you name it. And Roman Tullus dragged the liar's rags of flesh away through woods where brambles dripped a bloody dew. There too Porsenna stood, ordering Rome to take the exiled Tarquin back, then bringing the whole city under massive siege. There for their liberty Aeneas' sons threw themselves forward on the enemy's spears. You might have seen Porsenna imaged there to the life, a menacing man, a man in anger at Roman daring. Cocles, who downed the bridge, Cloelia, who broke her bonds and swam the river. Just endless references. On the shield's upper quarter, Manlius, guard of the Tarpeian rock, stood fast before the temple and held the capital, where Romulus's house was newly thatched and rough. Here, fluttering through gilded porticos at night, the silvery goose warned of the Gauls approaching. Under cover of the darkness, Gauls, amid the bushes, had crept near, and now lay hold upon the citadel. Golden locks they had, and golden dress, glimmering with striped cloaks, their milky necks entwined with gold. They hefted alpine spears, 2 each, and had long body shields for cover. Vulcan had fashioned naked Luperci, and Salii leaping there with woolen caps, and fallen from heaven's shields. And put chaste ladies riding in cushioned carriages through Rome with sacred images. At a distance then he pictured the deep hell of Tartarus, Dis's high gate, crimes, punishments, and yes, you, Catiline, on a precarious cliff, hanging and trembling at the Furies' glare. Then, far away from this, were virtuous souls, and Cato giving laws to them. Mid-shield, the pictured sea flowed surging all of gold, as whitecaps foamed on the blue waves, and dolphins shining in silver round and round the scene propelled themselves with flukes and cut through billows. Vivid in the center were the bronze-beaked ships and the fight at sea off Actium. Here you could see Leucata all alive with ships maneuvering, sea glowing gold. Augustus Caesar leading into battle, Italians, with both senators and people, household gods and great gods. There he stood high on the stern, and from his blessed brow twin flames gushed upward, while his crest revealed his father's star. Apart from him, Agrippa, favored by winds and gods, led ships in column, a towering figure, wearing on his brows the coronet adorned with warships' beaks, highest distinction for command at sea. Then came Antonius, with barbaric wealth and a diversity of arms, victorious. From races of the Dawnlands and Red Sea, leading the power of the east, of Egypt, even of distant Bactra of the steppes, and in his wake the Egyptian consort came so shamefully. That's Cleopatra. The Egyptian consort. Doesn't even name her. The camouflage, not so much. The ships all kept together, racing ahead, the water torn by oar strokes, torn by the triple beaks, in spume and foam, all made for the open sea. You might believe the Cyclades uprooted were afloat, or mountains running against mountain heights, when seamen in those hulks pressed the attack upon the other turreted ships. There's a lot of fighting. I'm going to skip over a little bit. The queen, amidst the battle, called her flotilla on with a sistrum's beat, a frenzy out of Egypt, never turning her head as yet to see twin snakes of death behind, while monster forms of gods of every race and a dog god Anubis barking held their weapons up against our Neptune, Venus, and Minerva. Mars, engraved in steel, raged in the fight, as from high air the dire Furies came, with discord, taking joy in a torn robe, and on her heels with bloody scourge, Bellona. So again, all of this action is going on somehow on this shield. We're seeing things, we're not just seeing characters, we're seeing them actually interact with each other and doing things. And still, we go on. Overlooking it all, Actian Apollo began to pull his bow. Wild at this sight, all Egypt, Indians, Arabians, all Sabaeans put about in flight, and she, the queen, appeared crying for winds to shift, just as she hauled up sail and slackened sheets. The Lord of Fire had portrayed her there amidst the slaughter, pallid with death to come. Then borne by waves and wind from the northwest, while the great length of morning Nile awaited her with open bays, calling the conquered home to his blue bosom and his hidden streams. But Caesar then, in triple triumph, rode within the walls of Rome, making immortal offerings to the gods of Italy. 300 princely shrines throughout the city. There were the streets, humming with festal joy and games and cheers, an altar to every shrine, to every one a mother's choir, and bullocks, knifed before the altars, strewed the ground. The man himself, enthroned before the snow-white threshold of sunny Phoebus, viewed the gifts the nation of the earth made, and he fitted them to the tall portals. Conquered races passed in long procession, varied in languages, as in their dress and arms. Here Mulciber, divine smith, had portrayed the nomad tribes and Afri with ungirdled flowing robes, here Leleges and Carians, and here Galonians with quivers. Here Euphrates, milder in his floods now, There Morini, northernmost of men. Here bull-horned Rhine, and there the still unconquered Scythian Dahe. Here vexed at being bridged the rough Araxes. All these images on Vulcan's shield, his mother's gift, were wonders to Aeneas. Knowing nothing of the events themselves, he felt joy in their pictures, taking up upon his shoulder all the destined acts and fame of his descendants. Whew. Okay, so that is the end of the description of the arms and also the end of Book 8. So again, what the hell is going on here? This is Virgil flexing his muscles, his literary muscles, being like, all right, this is my epic poem about how freaking great Rome is, how awesome my buddy Augustus is, and his family and his history. I'm just going to lay it all in there. I'm going to squeeze in every possible detail I can. And here's a great chance to do it, right? Because the gods, Vulcan makes this amazing shield. We already have this great tradition from Homer about putting just a massive amount of detail on it. I can tell all this, future stuff, which is our past, and just pack it all in there. And boy, does he ever. Going back through just a couple of points. So again, we start off with Romulus and Remus. Then we get a bunch of stuff surrounding the story of the Sabine women, which is another classic Roman sort of foundation tale. It's not a great one. It's also called The Rape of the Sabine Women. There, at one point, the Romans, as it turned out, it was mostly dudes. Oh, looks like my bit rate dropped, so I don't know if the video is holding. It didn't go all the way to. That's pretty bad. So at one point, the Romans, they were mostly dudes, and they needed some ladies. So they were working with a nearby tribe, and they invited them to a big. Basically, they invited them to a party, and the party was happening. They got the men drunk, and they grabbed their women. They took their women back with them. Got the women pregnant. Later on, the men come back, try to get them, and the Sabine women say, well, hold on now. We're having kids. We want to be part of this now because we're having children with these people. Essentially. I mean, there's a lot more to the story. They are able to negotiate peace, but it's not a great story. But anyway, that's depicted here on the shield. We have a lot of specific characters from Roman history: Metis, Tullus, the Etruscan king Porsenna. Lots of people who did different things. We get other starts to the city and different peoples coming and attacking them. Gauls, the Luperci, the Salii, Cato, right? An early lawgiver. Yeah, and the word Sabine has spread. That shows up all around the world. And then of course you get this giant sea battle at Actium between Augustus and then all of the other people involved there. So we get Augustus Caesar, and he is magnificent. And he's got flames going up from his brow, and his crest revealed his father's star. So there is the Romans had this story that when Julius Caesar died, that he went up to heaven and became he got to basically he didn't become a god quite so much as he just got to go and like hang out with the gods. But there was a shooting star or a comet that was like at the time, so it was like, oh, that's him going up to the gods. So that's the star on Augustus's crest. And then yes, we get all of these juicy details about Cleopatra, even though Virgil will not name her. just just keeping that hate alive. You know, all this stuff about how like and as we see before, like the Romans are well ordered and unified, but the Egyptians are like they've got a bunch of random people fighting for them, and they're just a mass. Yeah, and they fight. The Egyptians are spurred on by a sistrum beating, and it's a sistrum is it's a kind of drum, but it's used very specifically here because it's like a foreign instrument. Like no Roman would ever play or listen to a sistrum. That's one of these foreign people's things. It's barbaric. And then yes, we've got the cool note about the Egyptians being animal gods, right? And they're coming to fight against our Neptune, Venus, and Minerva, Mars, and the rest. There you go. And all of that is on a shield. Trying to read all those little details. Salacious crumbs. Yes. Cool. So that takes us into book 8. We'll start book 9 next time. Out of a total of 12 books, so we are getting close to the end. It's gonna ramp up a little bit as we get into this. The final battles against Turnus. Oh, that guy Turnus. We've got a lot of death still coming up. A lot of sadness. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Like I said, over the weekend. Oh, and yeah, for all of those who were around on Saturday, we did not end up having a Home Buddies group stream. There were things that we were trying to do, but then certain people couldn't make it. And it was just like, we're just going to hold off and go on to next time. Yes. Turnips. Turnus. But does Turnus like turnips? Possibly. Yeah. Like I said, my week's schedule is turnips. Yes. My schedule for this week is still a bit up in the air with stuff that's going on with my family. I will let everybody know on Discord when I know when I'll be streaming, but hopefully it'll be close to my normal schedule. But I just don't know. You'll know when I know. And again, in theory, this coming Saturday, just a few days away, I'll be attending the grand opening of the Warhammer store and cafe here in Monrovia. Who I will be with and what we will be doing is not finalized, but it'll be cool. I do have, if anybody would like to and can and feels like it, of course, no pressure, you can donate. All money goes to just costs for the day and then trying to get cool stuff that I can then do on stream. So we're working on that. And I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else going on this week. I don't know. But I hope everybody's off to a good start to their week. Let's see. Should we raid? Let's raid. Ooh. it would, it always helps when you're doing a raid if you spell the name of the person you want to raid correctly. Because if you don't do that, Twitch either tries to find somebody with that name that you incorrectly spelled, or is like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's wild. Yeah. Okay. So again, thank you so much for everybody who hung out today. Words are hard. Like I said, I know there are other people streaming, so we had a little bit of a smaller audience today. That's fine. It's all good. Thank you all for being here and listening and hanging out. We're going to raid our good friend Ryback Stunt. He's playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Got some Greek mythology going on over there too. So that's cool. Check in, see what part of the game he's working on. And hopefully I'll be on stream with Jessica tomorrow. I don't know for certain yet, but we'll announce it on the Discord because I really, really want to get back to Disco Elysium. It's like the coolest thing ever. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, have a great week, and I'll see you next time I stream. Or just go on the Discord. I'm always there. Okay, bye. Okay. Okay. I mean, what? I don't know why you're going then. That sounds weird. It sounds weird. Why are you going then? If you.
Because I promised them I was supposed to get out a lot sooner, but then Max did a million things. I screwed up our own spook. Benjamin wasn't bothered, and it's just turned into a whole thing.
Okay.